Howdy folks, welcome back to Grumpy Viking Tactical Channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you, I'm going to be talking about guns. Actually going to be doing a bit of a rebuttal video, so I don't quite remember when it was, but it was at least a month or so. It's probably about 2 months ago now. I did a video actually on this firearm here. This is a Kimber Micro TLE. This is in 380, and I've been having some issues. My wife and I have been having some issues with this handgun since the day we got it. I got it for her as a concealed carry handgun. And understand, folks, and bit of a disclaimer, I actually had gotten this handgun as a concealed carry handgun for her. She found the gun to be, it's very small, fits her hand really well. She's only 5 foot, so she's got really small hands. And things of that nature, and we've been kind of having issues with the handgun ever since. And well, there were some things that were said and some falsehoods that were spread and some things of that nature that were posted on a certain forum. The names on the gun, I'm not going to get in the name of the forum or the name of the said actors. And growing up as a kid, my father always taught me that a falsehood spread about oneself is, without rebuttal, is given into a lie about one's self, and in turn it soils one's reputation. So it's been a while, but I've decided I'm going to do a rebuttal. I've actually been kind of backburnering this, but yeah, I'm going to do this. Now, a couple quick disclaimers and some things I want to go over. First thing is every firearm here that is present that you will see has been cleared. None of these are loaded. I have cleared them all even before I started recording. That way I don't have to sit here and clear every single one of these firearms while going over this. Next thing, for those of you who have been supporting, liking, commenting, subscribing to the YouTube channel, etc., etc., thank you very much. You've been helping with the growth and essentially helping fight back the final boss that is the YouTube algorithm. I do appreciate that, as well as it does send support to me in the way of AdSense, which does help in turn sort of give the channel a budget. Not much of a budget, but it's still a budget nonetheless. Also, on terms of budget, I do have a Patreon page, and I want to say thank you very much to all the Patreon supporters. It does help the channel as well. It helps with things such as ammunition, buying equipment, and etc. to do reviews on, and all kinds of things of that nature. I really do appreciate that, and it really does help me out. It really does help keep the channel going. And for anyone who wants to give support or would be interested in giving more support to the channel, the link is down below in the video description for my Patreon page. Now let's get more into the meat and potatoes of the video. Okay, so here's the thing. A while ago I did the video, and I kind of did the video as a, I'm having an issue, been having issues with this Kimber Micro TLE. My wife and I both been having issues with this. And pretty much we've been having issues with this since we've got it out of the box. Even basically from the very first shot. And it was already had previously been returned to Kimber at that point, and I talk about what was on the paperwork for the service of the pistol that Kimber had done. Now, I had posted the video, and I decided to share the video around, and I shared it on a particular forum, which once again the name is on the gun of said forum. And I thought that would be a good place to actually post a video and kind of ask for help, because sometimes actually showing and explaining something for me is easier than trying to type out some kind of long storybook explanation of this is what I'm doing, this is what's going on, etc., etc. And I was hoping at the end of the day what it would do is it would help raise awareness of the issue, and maybe somebody could point me in the right direction and go, hey, try this before sending it back to Kimber, blah, blah, blah. And there were some people that took offense to this. And there was some falsehoods and things of that nature that were said. I'm going to start off with one in particular, being that at some point or another, somebody claimed that I was a firearms expert or a gun expert, or I can't remember what they said. It was something along those lines, gun expert or firearm expert. I think they said gun expert. I've watched the video 8 times. I've actually gone back and watched the video multiple times, because it's kind of one of those things of, I don't know where I ever said that I was a firearm expert. And I've even checked out like my channel descriptions, and I've checked out my video description, the whole 9 yards, and nowhere at all did I ever say I was a firearm expert. I can't claim that I'm a firearm expert. I know a lot about guns, or at least I think I do. Unfortunately, tomorrow I'll probably wake up and learn something new about firearms that I never knew about before, and realize I didn't know as much as I thought I knew, and realize I'm more of a student about firearms than I think I am. And with that being said, I think that's honestly the real thing that people should take away from firearms, is there's a lot of things out there about firearms that we think we know and that we don't. Example, this was several months ago. This was 2, 3, maybe, heck, it could have been 5 months ago. The time flies with me, and I don't keep track of everything. But I saw this double-barreled rifle in 45-70 that Marlin had made, that I literally could not find any information about the rifle whatsoever. And basically what it came down to is I did try to help the individual as much as I could, find whatever information I could about the rifle, and I pretty much came up with a flat bust. Now understand, folks, this was not, he told me what the model was. I actually physically saw the factory stampings, markings, and etc. on said rifle. And basically what it came down to is I sent him an email and said, this is the email to Ian McCollum at Forgotten Weapons. Message him your photographs and all the information that you have, and hopefully he can help you out, because he's about the only person I can think of on the internet that is a firearms expert. A real, true, honest to God firearms expert, because he knows things about guns most people will never know about guns, including the odd, rare prototypes, and he's even gotten to touch said odd, rare prototypes, such as like the Pancor jackhammer. So these self-proclaimed internet experts, which I have seen quite a few of these self-proclaimed internet experts, yeah, y'all need to sit down, because y'all don't know as much as you think you do. I know, like I said, I feel comfortable with the amount of knowledge I have. I have quite a bit of knowledge, but it's mostly pertaining with more modern firearms, particularly cartridge-based firearms. When it comes to stuff like black powder, percussion cap, flintlock, wick-based, I know of existence. I know some information. I really don't know a lot about black powder based firearms, and I'm going to be straightforward and honest with you. I know about some of the more popular ones, such as like the Colt Single Action Army and the Colt Dragoon, and there was the Remington 1860, so on and so forth, but realistically I don't know much of anything when it comes to firearms like that. And I know of odd stuff like old school paper shotgun shells, which are actually making a comeback, folks, for those of you who didn't know. But either ways, I am not a firearm expert. I know a lot of stuff, or I think I know a lot of stuff. Maybe I know a lot of stuff. Maybe I really don't know a lot of stuff. I don't know. I just take time out of my schedule, out of my day, away from my family, to go out to the range, to do stuff like this, show you stuff, show you drills, talk about guns, talk about gear, and talk about tactical type stuff, survival type stuff, etc., etc. I'm just trying to give you what knowledge I have. I don't, I've never said I'm an expert, and I can't proclaim that I am an expert, because when it comes to things such as along the lines of self-defense, there's guys that exist like Masada who knows way more about self-defense, shooting, and stuff like that than I do. And there's guys like Paul Harrell who's probably forgotten more about guns and ammunition and etc. than I will ever know, unfortunately for me, because I'd like to know as much as he does, and I just probably never will. And then of course there's guys like Ian McCollum who just knows a ton of stuff. So, you know, either ways, for those of you who proclaim that I am some kind of firearm expert, or claim that I'm some kind of firearm expert, yeah, no, I'm not. And you just outright lied, which honestly makes you look bad. Either ways, next thing. I had brought up about that this is in general terms a 1911 design pistol during the video. And there were some people who said, well, why did he say that? That's actually incorrect. Well, if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. It must be a duck. This is a single action pistol. It's got a mainspring housing. It's got a 1911 style trigger. Single action only. It's got a safety like a 1911. There is some redesigns here, such as it's got a full length slide, or it's a full length guide rod, things of that nature. So it's not a one-to-one. I just said in simple terms that it's a 1911. It's not really a 100% 1911. Honestly, in simplified terms, this is a 1911, but there's quite a bit of redesign here as well, even though this is closer to a 1911 than the Kimber is. And actually, even Springfield Armory says that this is a 1911. The TSOS Raider here actually is a 1911. It's a clone of an M45A1. And actually, I can find many similarities on this Kimber that I can find on this TSOS Raider, even though this is, you know, a 1911 in God's caliber, and it's a full size. So take with that what you will. I mean, maybe there's something I'm missing. I do see some redesigns here, and when I did say that, I said that in a general terms sense. I didn't want to get into more details about what is different from this to a real, true, honest to God 1911, because there is differences. But that being said, while Springfield Armory says that this is a 1911, there's differences to this. So yeah, it's part of like the extended family. It's kind of like a second or third cousin, if you will, at least in my opinion, but whatever. Moving on to the next thing. Someone said about that first-time gun buyer's remorse. That's an interesting statement. First-time gun buyer's remorse. Well, this is not the first gun I've ever bought. This is actually not even the first gun my wife's ever bought. Let's dive into it here. So the first gun I ever got is actually a Red Ryder BB gun, very similar to this one. My father gave it to me when I was 7. It's not this one. This is my son's. Mine's actually up in the attic. I didn't feel like going up there and digging it out because it's very hot up there today. Mine didn't have a compass either, or the feather part. This doesn't count because it's not a real gun. All right, fine. Does this one count? This is a Ruger convertible. This is a single 6, and literally this will shoot just about anything that is 22. It won't shoot 22 Hornet, but it will shoot 22 short, 22 long, and 22 Magnum. This is actually the very first gun I ever shot. I started shooting when I was 7, and this was the gun I learned on. Of course, it was my father's. He bought it brand new. I can't exactly remember when he bought it. I'd have to go back and look at the serial number and see if I can't find the serial number in the records. But Of course, now this is, he had passed away several years ago, and now this is mine. This doesn't count either because it wasn't mine when I first started shooting it. Okay. What about this one? This is the very first .357 Magnum I ever shot. I started shooting this when I was about 10. Got second place in a local shooting competition when I was 15 with this. 14 or 15, I can't quite remember. It's been many moons now. No, this doesn't count either because it's a single action revolver and it wasn't mine at the time. Okay, well, what about this one? This is a semi-automatic. My dad got this back in 1991, 1992, back when these were first introduced. This is a Smith & Wesson Model 3904, which is a double action, single action semi-automatic. No, this doesn't count either, even though this is also my gun now too. Okay. What about this one? This is a Rossi Model 971. I actually went with my father when we picked this gun. Yes, we picked this gun. It was a combination of my father and I. I actually helped him pay this off. I think I was 15 when we got this. And essentially, my summer job money helped pay for this gun. Even though he's actually the one that registered it in the whole 9 yards. Oh, this doesn't count either because it originally wasn't registered to me? Okay, fine. Oh, and I also actually won a pistol competition with this one when I was 16. Okay, well, fine. How about this one? Oh, wait a minute. Nope, sorry, I missed a gun because it's not here. I sold actually the first handgun I bought. It was a Smith & Wesson 40 VE. It was one of the Sigma series handguns. It's a Glock clone. They introduced them in the, I think it was the late 90s, and they're notoriously junk. I'm not sure about the most modern renditions of the Sigma series handguns though, which I think they're the SB series now. But yeah, that handgun was not very good. Very inaccurate, jammed a lot, very unreliable, etc., etc. And it was the only gun I ever sold. Hated that thing. Oh, that doesn't count either because even though it was the first gun I bought, I don't own it anymore. Okay, well then fine. We have this one. This is a Springfield Armory EMP4 in 9mm. And I love this gun. I got about 5,000 rounds through this gun. As you can see, I take pretty meticulous care of it because actually for having about 5,000 rounds through the gun, it still looks actually in pretty damn good shape for how many rounds I have through it. So does this one count? Do I finally have a winner? Now, by the way, I did get this one before I got the Kimber. So I would hope this would count. And then finally, as a by the way, this is the newest member of the family. So, and this is a T-Sauce Raider. Still breaking that one in too, folks. And that one's dirty because that was actually just out of the range with me today. So as you can see, this is nowhere near the first handgun. This is just a small sample of the collection, and literally the two newest guns in the collection are these two. And actually, this one actually costs a little bit more than the T-Sauce, and the T-Sauce so far has proven to be more reliable. So, moving on to the next part. Oh, actually, I want to revert back to another part. I did talk a bit about shooting, and this had to do with the whole pistol expert thing. I did bring up the fact that I brought the fact that I shot, when I was in the service, I'd shot sharpshooter with the M16A2, and I'd shot, I had shot expert with the Beretta, and I got second place in one shooting competition and first place in another shooting competition. And but essentially what it came down to is I stated the fact that even though I had been shooting for a long time, none of that really makes me an expert. So that, just really quick, I forgot to touch that, and that's kind of the issue with not having scripts. Pardon me, folks. Sorry, clearing my throat. So the next thing I want to touch base on is, now when we did the Kimber video, my son and I, understand my son does help me. He's kind of the cameraman. and he helps me out with collecting the brass, and he helps me out with loading the magazines and setting up the targets and etc. He helps me out quite a bit actually at the range. He's a very good little, you know, range helper, and I do appreciate his help. And that was the first time he's actually been out at the range with me, and I've been trying to teach him proper range etiquette, proper range safety, etc., and get him used to the sound of firearms, because I've been trying to teach him firearm safety, firearms usage, and etc., because one of these days my collection of guns, which is, understand, you're only seeing a small portion of that collection, is going to end up in his hands, him and his brother. So, you know, I'm trying to get him used to that type of stuff. And someone brought up the fact is, you know, shame on you, what are you teaching your son? And that's actually a good, valid question. I appreciate that question, and I'm going to answer that question. And particularly what I taught my son that day was, because I asked him, when we leave the range, I usually sit down, talk to him, find out, hey, what did you learn at the range today? What did you think? Did you have fun? Stuff like that. And the day we did that video with the Kimber here, I asked him, and he actually said to me, you have to trust your equipment. If you're going to use it, you have to trust it. And once it has to be reliable to trust it, because your life is going to depend on it. That's pretty much what he said. It wasn't those exact words, but it was around those words. And basically basically he also said something along the lines of, once you lose the trust in your equipment, you shouldn't use it. So there you go. Someone asked me about using equipment. He also learned a bit about actually using a camera, which it's still a process, but we're working on it. So next thing, finally, and that's pretty much it with the rebuttal portion. Now the next thing I want to cover is folks out there who actually did give me advice and did help me out and did check out the video and said, hey, try this, try XYZ, you know, try slingshotting the slide, try putting more rounds through it, you know, buffing the feed ramp, stuff like that. I do appreciate that help, and I did actually try to do that stuff. Between my wife and I, we tried to put about another 500 rounds through this gun. So this gun is now up to 800 rounds. However, it is still proved unreliable because another issue has actually come up with this gun, and I still got to get it out to the range to test it out. But the Kimber actually, no matter what, at the end of the day, ended up having to go back to Kimber again anyway. So I took it out to the range. I put 200 rounds through it, slingshot in the slide. I still had issues here and there with the round chambering, but I'd say, you know, 95% of the time it would go into battery every time it worked. So good stuff there. That actually did work. Slingshot in the slide worked. It's a little clumsy, especially because this gun is so small. Understand, I also sling this one. I'm still breaking in, so I got to slingshot this one too. But this one, it's not as clumsy because it's such a larger handgun. With this one, it's so tiny, it's kind of hard for me to slingshot, especially my big bear size hand. But it did make an improvement. It wasn't a 100% improvement, but an improvement nonetheless. For the most part, the gun would cycle. I did have a hiccup when I was going through those 200 rounds where it didn't feed properly. It partially fed and kind of jammed up, and all I had to do was pull back the slide a little bit and, you know, reshove it into position, and it went into position. So, okay, tried that, went home, lubed it up really, really good. Almost to the point of dripping, but not quite dripping. The next time I went out to the range, literally it was actually the next day I went out to the range. My wife and I went out. So now it's her shooting her gun. And I told her, slingshot, you know, grab a hold of the slide, slingshot it when you're chambering in your first mag. you know, when you put in a fresh mag chamber or slingshot it. And that day I actually took this gun out, and this thing just eats everything. I could load, that day I was shooting 115 grain full metal jacket round nose wolf ammo, and it just ran. I love this gun. This thing just eats everything. I have yet to find an ammo that will not feed through this gun. So she fired off about 300 rounds, and I'm watching her shoot, and I'm watching her work the slide and stuff like that, and she still had problems every once in a while where it just would not fully go into battery. Now I think she only had it happen to her once, maybe twice. So still kind of an issue there where it's not going into battery. And I did call Kimber and I did tell them that, but then there was a new issue that had come up, which I have no explanation for. And what had happened is there was 4 times, different times, where she had pulled the trigger, the hammer fell, and there was no primer strike on the round in the chamber. She had pulled back the slide, round would come out, and I would go to inspect the round, and there was literally no primer strike. And it wasn't like a misaligned primer strike where like it hit the rim or something like that. It just did not strike at all. So absolutely no explanation there. The gun did go back to Kimber. Sorry there, folks. Had to do a quick battery change. But so the gun went back to Kimber, and it is back. I have not gotten back to go out to the range. So we're going to be going out to the range with this sometime soon. And yeah, it's back for redemption. We're going to see what happens. So definitely subscribe to the channel to see how that turns out. But man, the other thing I have found out too with this whole experience and actually posting the video around and asking questions and showing people, hey, what can you tell me? A lot of people have told me that the quality of Kimber firearms is not what it used to be. Kimber used to be really, really good quality firearms. And unfortunately, they've really dropped the ball over the years, is what it sounds like. And I don't know if that's completely true, but honestly, looking around, it sounds like about 50-50 on if you're going to get a good quality firearm or not from Kimber. Now, that being said, I love the finish. I mean, the finish quality is really gorgeous. It's not, you know, the machining quality is really good, but just the reliability has just been a real toss-up. And there's been other people too that have the micros, like the micro 9s, and that's had nothing but issues with them. I really think that's going to be it for today, folks. I know this was a bit of a long video, and it was just kind of talking, but I've been really sitting back thinking about it, and it's like, you know what, I just can't stand back and let people just kind of spread false information about myself, about the channel, and things of that nature, because, you know, at the end of the day, just because you're a fanboy of a certain brand, doesn't matter if it's a Kimber, doesn't matter if it's Springfield, doesn't matter if it's Ruger, if it's Smith & Wesson, if it's T-Sauce. It doesn't matter what brand it is. If somebody has an issue with a gun and they're having an issue, maybe it's because of operator error or just because the gun has an issue itself. In the case of this one, this gun actually did have repairs done to it already. Yeah, folks, that's just how it is. And you can't shame a person for actually publicly saying that, hey, I'm having an issue with this gun, and honestly, I'm not happy. And that's essentially what I did. And essentially, people had gotten their underwear in a bunch and decided that the best thing they could do was spread falsehoods and try to soil what reputation I have, or my reputation in general, as well as even try to I don't know, somehow insult me by dragging my son into it. I'm not quite sure. You know what? It is what it is at this point. It's water under the bridge, folks. I'm still going to do what I do, and that's try and do, you know, good YouTube content where I can show you guys new stuff, do reviews on equipment, etc. Try to show you drills, try to show you different stuff I do that works for me on different guns, such as the T-Sauce Raider and such as the Springfield, as well as other guns. I actually got some content I'm working on now with my Diamondback DB15, things of that nature. And hopefully you all enjoy it, and hopefully you all that do enjoy it continue supporting the channel. But anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap this up at that. Thank you very much for tuning in today's video. Hopefully you all enjoy it, and have yourself a wonderful day.